We can hear you. You do sound very strange, and I suppose I will now too with the echo. But we're recording this workshop. Just to remind you all of that, of course, again, in case you can't catch up now, or you have colleagues who can't be with us at the moment. We're really looking forward to talking about integrated phonology, going beyond initial teacher training and continuing to integrate phonology into our teaching. Pete is the principal at IH Bristol in England. He has been a DOS both and overseas, and he's also Trinity Tip qualified. He's also spoken at many IH conferences over the last few years, and we're really looking forward to having some phonology integrated into our 60th anniversary conference. So over to you, Pete, and I hope you all enjoy the session.
And
you do need, remember to turn your mic on now, Pete.
Sorry. Okay. Are we okay for sound? Okay, right. I've got the message to go for it. So, okay. Integrated phonology, yes. Now, before I start, I should point out that that is not a picture of myself on the front page there, but that's just one of our teachers integrating phonology into their lessons. But yes, I must say that that it's and I'm sure you have all understood that to mean it's lovely to see you. Note the falling tone on C. It's lovely to see you. But don't worry, it's not all about transcription. In fact, it's so much more than transcription. Something we can do, but there is all kinds of other areas that we need to be aware of and bring into our teaching. So over the next 45 minutes, we're going to consider why, what, and how. Okay. For the how, I'm going to ask you to think about and reflect on 3 areas of your teaching: drilling, classroom techniques, and board work. I think these are 3 simple things that people can really develop in their teaching and are often underexploited or neglected even by many teachers. Okay, so why teach pronunciation? Let's start with the first question. Well, I think there are some obvious reasons for me. It's crucial for learners' confidence. And I think confidence is really a key word there. Confidence in their international intelligibility. That makes sense to you. 2 angles, productive and receptive. And pronunciation is happening all around us in the language classroom. There's so much there that perhaps we're not noticing, not drawing attention to, not helping our students with. So I'm like to encourage you to look for the pronunciation syllabus waiting to be uncovered in each lesson. And it's not always obvious for students. The link between pronunciation and spelling in English, for example. Streams of sound aren't always obvious what words they are. But don't just take it from me. Let's have a look at a current pronunciation expert and what he has to say. I emailed Robin Walker to ask him why teach phonology at all. And this was his answer back to me by email. And if I can draw your attention to the final part there, the final 2 sentences. Have a look. Pronunciation is the glue that holds everything else together. It's the center that stops things falling apart. So I think that's a really nice summary, and I would certainly agree with that. But let's ask a different kind of question. What is it that stops teachers from teaching pronunciation? Let's have a look. Well, I think there are 2 common answers to that. Why not teach pronunciation? Oh, first one. I'm a non-nest. I'm a non-native English-speaking teacher. But I don't think that's necessarily anything to be worried about. I think you, if you're a non-native English-speaking teacher, a non-nest, you probably have excellent English. And here are two other quotes that I think are very encouraging, especially this final one down here, again from Robin Walker. Non-nests will automatically provide an excellent example of precisely the sort of internationally intelligible accent that the learners can aspire to, and represents what learners can realistically be expected to achieve. So I think it's a real encouragement there. No need to be afraid. Okay, let's have a look at the next and second common reason. I interview many teachers for summer positions, hundreds over the years probably, and very, very often this is the answer they give me about phonology. I've forgotten it. Yeah, we did it on my course. We did it on my CELTA course. Yes, the chart. No. But to be honest, I don't really do it very much anymore. Don't know if that rings any bells with anybody. But I don't know. I don't think that, to be honest, for me, is good enough. I think this is a crucial language system. We can't just put it to one side and let it fade into the background. So what can you do? Well, for those people, you can do some very simple things. Adrian Underhill is a great help here. Read the Sound Foundations book again, or if you haven't, read it. It's so crucial. It's so useful. It's such a nice, simple explanation and thorough explanation. Look at his YouTube videos. Teach yourself the phonemic chart. There's a download pronunciation app. Brilliant stuff there. SoundsPron app. And if it's not part of your CPD, your professional development, ask. No, demand that your DOS provide CPD on pronunciation. Okay. So some reasons not to teach pronunciation, but I think we've got some good answers there. And if you needed one final statistic to persuade you that pronunciation is crucial for your learners, how about this? Mary White. Doesn't look a bit like Mary Whitehouse. One of the other leading English as a lingua franca researcher, Jennifer Jenkins, back in 2000, has a seminal article on communication between non-natives and non-natives speaking English. And this chart, I think, is a beautiful little illustration of how important pronunciation is. These are the causes of communication breakdown in English as a lingua franca, as researched by Jennifer Jenkins. Now, the white, by the way, is the grammar. Interesting. The majority of those pronunciation problems were actually individual sounds, L1 interference. So there you go. That is surely, just that is enough to persuade you that you've got to build pronunciation into what you're doing, integral in what you're doing. Okay. Let's move on to what. What can you teach? What can you draw attention to? What's the variety of pronunciation features that you can be working with your students? Okay, let's do this by looking at a dialogue. Here's a sample dialogue which includes one of I.H. Bristol's phrases of the day. We have one for each day of the year. There are I.H. Bristol phrase of the day videos on YouTube if you're interested. They're excellent. But our phrase of the day recently was, where there's a will, there's a way. Nice saying. Where there's a will, there's a way. Here would be a typical dialogue that I would contextualize that phrase with. What do you think of this? So, I'd love to go to America one day, but I just can't afford it. Oh, you will if you really want to. Remember, where there's a will, there's a way. Have a think. In that dialogue, as I said it, what kinds of things would you draw your students' attention to in that dialogue? What could you point out usefully to them? To help them say it, to help them to be able to understand it better. Some nice ideas coming in. Absolutely, intonation, vowel sounds, weak forms. Very, very good. Okay. Now, I'll just show you, see how you compare to my marking up of this dialogue. Now, please, careful. I'm not suggesting I would mark up like this for my students. I'm going to show you lots of different things that are possible. You might select some of these for your students depending on their needs. But here's what you could be drawing attention to. Have a look. How does it compare to your ideas? Just have a look through. Let me say it to you again. No, in fact, try and say it for yourselves. Try and follow my note. See if it works for you. Can you say it to yourself like that? Okay. I'd love to go to America one day, but I just can't afford it. You will if you really want to. Remember, where there's a will, there's a way. Okay, all right. My point here is that there is so much out there in everything we're doing. Now, we're not going to draw attention to all of it. We'll draw attention to the useful things for your students. But let's try and make sure that we're all broadening the range of what we are trying to address. We can break it down into two areas. Okay, the two main areas will be segmental and suprasegmental. The individual sound level, mechanical articulation, the segmental level, phonemes, and the suprasegmental level, more connected speech, how sounds interact with each other, how they affect each other. Have a quick look. Just to give you some examples on the last three on the right-hand side. Rhythm. Okay, so you've got a nice example. I'd like a cup of tea for two, please. Nice example. Lots of weak forms in there. I'd like a cup of tea for two, please. Okay, not all utterances are that rhythmical. That's an example, though. Assimilation. Good boy. Maybe talking to a dog. Good boy, good boy. Good boy, good boy. Elision. Next, please. Linking. You are. Okay, and then intonation. That's incredible news. Well done. All kinds of things you can be drawing attention to. So I would like, if I can, to do a quick survey, quick poll with everybody to see what about you and your teaching. Can we do that now? Sean, is that okay? So I'm going to ask Sean to put out the poll. I'd like you all to take part if possible. And the question is, which of these do you teach regularly? Which of these do you teach regularly? Be honest, please. Which do you teach regularly? I'm going to give you another 30 or 40 seconds. Very interesting. Lots of movement here. Okay, I think that's good. No, still going up. Still going up. We'll give it another 15 seconds. Get your last ticks in. 10 seconds. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and I think I can end the poll there. All right, sorry if you didn't get all your ticks in there, but that will be some kind of representation, perhaps, of what's going on. All right, so great to see lots of people focusing on intonation, word stress coming out top there. As I suspected, the more connected speech level, phrase, utterance stress, rhythm, assimilation, elision, linking, more that supra-segmental level, less of a focus for you. But good that the vowel sounds are really crucial, as we're going to see in a minute, coming up. So really interesting, guys. So Sean, if we can take that away, that would be great. Thank you. So, okay. But there's more. Those are really important, of course they are. But within those, and within pronunciation and delivery, what about this? It's not the whole story. Because don't forget, in real oral communication, there are features like these that can have a big impact on the message too. So have a look. What do you think those missing letters are? Any ideas? They are quite high level, diploma level linguistic terms, but so don't worry too much. But body language, gesture, pauses, utterance boundaries, speed, volume, quality. Let's have a look. Whoa, Hannah got in there first. Hannah from Ecuador, congratulations. You are the winner. Let's see if the others come up with the same things. Okay, great. And the answers are paralinguistic, sequential, and prosodic. All right, don't worry too much about what those mean. I mean, you know, knowing those terms. I think they are important, but let's look at those examples. Body language, gesture, pauses, boundaries to where an utterance begins and finishes. Speed, volume, quality. You could be whispering, you could be shouting, you could be screaming, you can be with a hoarse voice. Pitch range, that's incredible. Big pitch range. So I would ask, how often do you focus on these aspects? For example, when you're drilling or maybe correcting your students. So just a question, a challenge perhaps, to remember that helping students with real meaningful communication is more than just sounds. Okay. So when you're talking about what you should focus on, I think this is also fascinating research. This is about what you should prioritize for your learners. So, have a look. This is research from Jennifer Jenkins. I mentioned her before. And this is for non-native to non-native speakers of English. The world of ELF, English as a lingua franca, which of course is where most of the English is being spoken these days. And probably your students are the ones that this will apply to. Have a look at the terms in the blue box. And I want you to think about the first category, because Jennifer Jenkins said that the students producing these correctly can have 3 effects. A positive effect, no impact, or even a negative impact on their intelligibility. Now, have a look at category 1. Can you think of 1 or 2 items that you think really important for learners to get correct that would have a positive effect on intelligibility? Have a think. So intonation, minimal pairs for minimal pairs for, okay, so we're talking about vowel sounds especially, and consonant sounds, sentence stress, nuclear stress coming through. Well, here we go. Let me reveal the first category. How does it match up to what you thought? Short and long vowels, excellent. This is the first category. And you can see what's left. Individual consonant sounds, consonant clusters, so spoon, 6th vowels. Someone said long and short vowels. I live in Bristol, I leave Bristol. Okay, this is important. Nuclear stress placement. Okay, so we're talking about the main stress syllable in an utterance. I live in Bristol. I live in Bristol. I live in Bristol. This is the nuclear stress. So those were the only key features to make it into the positive effect. Leaving what? What about the other 2 categories? Let's have a look. Any guesses? Here are the results. There they are. I'll put them all up. Any surprises, guys? Well, for me, when I first read this research, really, someone's asking about nuclear stress. Yeah, so nuclear stress is the main stress syllable in an utterance. I live in Bristol, for example. Okay, so for me, really surprising was word stress. Word stress, no impact on intelligibility. Really? Wow, amazing. Stress timing. So British English, American English is said to be very stress timed. But I'd like a cup of tea for 2, please, as I said before. Okay. But this is what it said. And a negative impact on intelligibility for ELF speakers. Vowel reduction, schwa, we all love schwa. Weak forms, connected speech, assimilation, elision. Oh, a negative impact. Oh, that's interesting. So, and that first category is known as the lingua franca core, the LFC. Jennifer Jenkins, LFC. Okay, now, whether you think you agree with that or not, whether you think it's controversial, it is very controversial. But this is the main research, and she's done more research in 2007. This is the main research into English as a lingua franca, global English. So, in my opinion, we have to take notice. We have to at least bear it in mind. We have to come to our own conclusions. Okay. So this is when we're asking the question of how should we prioritize? And I'd be careful, health warning. Okay. This research into LFC is research and findings into a situation, it's not a defined variety of English, it's a situation. This is happening. Non-natives are speaking to non-natives. This is what's happening. This is becoming the norm. It is maybe a set of guidelines teachers could choose to follow if your students mostly need English for non-native to non-native communication. It doesn't mean you can't raise awareness of the other areas, but you might prioritize those first category items for your learners, but it's your decision. That's the latest research. Research is quite old, actually, 15 years or so. People reacting and thinking about it and applying it in the EFL classroom, as Robin Walker told me, this is in its infancy. People are not particularly taking much notice of it, in his opinion. But for all of this, what do we teach? What do we prioritize? I think the golden rule is surely this. You can only plan and teach and react and correct effectively according to your learners. What's the missing word, guys? Oh, thank you. Needs, exactly. So that's crucial. Who are you? Oh, the lovely Room G. These are Room G students, intermediate adults, with Joe O'Hagan, the Assistant Director of Studies. Some of you may know him from conferences and from his presentation at the last talk. So these are our adult learners. And just for your interest, for our adult learners, we give everybody an individual learning plan for them to put some information on their first day here, and we give it to their teachers. This is what it looks like, just for your interest. Do you have something similar in your schools? Maybe it's online, maybe it's paper form. We think it's really crucial. Please notice what I'm highlighting, of course. We also ask about pronunciation. What do they think their strengths and weaknesses are in pronunciation? What do they want to work on? And what do they want their English to have in terms of accent? British accent? American accent? My own accent. I want a Spanish English accent. I want an African English. I want a Russian English accent. And quite a few students tick that third column there. Quite a lot of students tick that, surprisingly. But we need to bear that in mind when we're teaching, when we're prioritizing. Do they need to do exams? Okay, so it's all important stuff. And I think as a teacher, you need to split their needs into two simple categories. Let me show you. What do your students want? What do they need in terms of, okay, two ways to think about it. Productive, receptive, phonological competence. And I think you have to consider that because it could be different. So, for example, maybe somebody's productive target accent, the first one there, guys, the first one, the productive target accent. Well, it might be, I want to have my own intelligible Spanish English accent. Okay, fine, no problem. But maybe that person wants to go and work in the UK. The target accent will be a British accent or British accents. So that will affect how you teach, what you teach, the listenings you choose, how you correct the students. So do make sure you know your students. I'm sure you do. And you can see some other categories there. Okay, let's get practical, guys. I'm sure you've been dying to hear the more practical side of this. This was my preamble. Thanks for bearing with me. Okay, I'm going to show you two videos. And I'd like you to have a look at Joe. Joe's making an appearance again. Thank you, Joe, for this. Choral drilling, his Room G, that lovely picture we saw earlier on. His Room G intermediate adults. And my simple question to you is, okay, let's make it obvious. What's wrong with this choral drilling for you? Have a look.
Okay, guys, please say this. Where there's a will, there's a way.
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 Thank you.
Okay. Guys, did people see the video? Did somebody say they couldn't see the video? I think people did see it. Okay, looks like most people saw it. Okay. Right. Well, just to say that was not the better version of the drilling, just in case you were worried. But yes, flat, subdued, not much bounce, too flat. Lacked a bit of intonation. Don't get the impression the teacher's listening to the responses. Absolutely. Okay, I completely agree, you'll be glad to know. No checking, brilliant. So, okay, let's have a look at version 2. Can you notice the differences in version 2?
Okay, guys, please say this. Where there's a will, there's a way.
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 Good. Da 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 da.
Da, da, da.
Excellent. Okay, guys, with your hands, please, like me, I want you to go up and then down. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Good. Again, where there's a will, there's a way.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Good. Now, guys, when we are saying this, we often use our hands a little bit. So we might go, where there's a will, there's a way. Okay? So I want you to lift and then drop. Okay, everybody after me. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Lovely. Again, could you just maybe move back in your chairs a little bit? Give yourself more room. Yeah. Okay, so everybody, where there's a will, there's a way.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Now, you're giving advice to somebody, so you need to say it with your eyes as well. Okay? You know, you can do this. Everyone, where there's a will, there's a way.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think I'm back on. Right, guys. Okay, thank you very much to Joe there. Now, yeah, I mean, for me, the second version, okay, we would probably be doing a bit more correcting of our students here, but for me, that was much better and much closer to what I want from good drilling from my teachers. And I've noticed so many comments here, breaking it down, intonation, rhythm, physical response, body language that goes with the phrase. Yeah, I agree. I think we would normally integrate the individual drilling as well. This was specifically for me to get Joe to showcase choral drilling. I did ask him to do that. Class is more enthusiastic, all kinds of things there. So I think there's so much, but actually what he's doing is quite sophisticated. It's not something that a newly qualified teacher would be able to do straight away, but we should be pushing them in that direction. Okay, so let's just have a look at that. Take from that video some of the key features for me that make for more effective drilling. Let's have a look. Sean, can you take the video away? Or is it me? Sorry, I think I'm... Yeah, okay, there we go. Let's make sure I'm still on the webcam there. Okay. For me, drilling is more than simple repetition. For me, good drilling has some or all of the following, and I think a lot of what we do here at International House Bristol, I'm sure you do the same, is at phrase level, because we believe, as I'm sure you do, that language works not in isolation, words in isolation, but more collocation and phrase level. We drill individual sounds, but often phrase level. I think these things are really important. Number one, that he focuses on the speed, the pauses, the volume. I think, number two, for me, if I was advising a newly qualified teacher, I would say, well, often I would just have as a default mode choral drills followed by 2 or 3 individual drills. Choral drills, the students feel safe, comfortable, they're not exposed. Maybe choose then one individual who's done very well, you've heard them, somebody who's struggling, they can do it after that person. This is at speed, snappy, bouncing it around. Number 3, use of appropriate gesture and body language, facial expressions, like Joe was doing. Focusing on typical emotions where appropriate. And number 5, really all of these. In context where you can. I had a dialogue at the beginning of the session. It was contextualized. With a focus on intonation and key stressed words. To make it meaningful. That's what we're trying to do. And I would also say that you can make your drilling physical. Get physical, like Joe was. Why not? Whole body drilling is yours. Joe was using his arms. His head, his face, his eyes. All of these things can be important. Eyebrows. Okay, no. Am I joking? I don't know. Why not? What was the phrase of the day? Where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. That could actually go quite naturally with the stressed syllable in an utterance. So why not? So you can consider these things when in your drilling and in the students. Let me show you an example of how crucial I think this side of things is. Imagine you've got 2 contrasting phrases. I'll show you this right now. Look at the body language and look at the phrase and see how they match up. I hope you agree that they match up. Have a look. Read these 2. There we go. Don't even think about it, says the first person. This is not a connected dialogue, by the way. 2 separate situations. Look at the body language there. What do you notice about don't even think about it? And the second one, a very, very different situation. I was really sorry to hear about your mother. Very different delivery, very different pitch patterns, volume, speed, etc. The first one is threatening. Exactly. I mean, think about this. The first phrase, you could say it with your teeth glued together because you're so angry. Don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. Try that. Try saying it yourself. But if you did the same for the second phrase, it would be completely inappropriate. I was really sorry to hear about your mother. You wouldn't do it with your teeth closed like that. So these things, it's a kind of gestural collocation. Have I invented a new linguistic term there? I don't think so. But do you see what I'm saying? I think we need to consider this through our teaching. So just something to think about, guys. Okay, so techniques. Let's move on to techniques. Exactly, that's right. The first one you can say with your teeth together, but not the second. Doesn't work. It's not appropriate. Okay, let's move on to we're looking at drilling and techniques and boardwork. Techniques then. Okay, guys, here are some really simple. I'm sure you use some of them already, but let's make it systematic. Let's make it regular. Every class, little and often, for presentation, for correction, for raising awareness. Simple things, and you can advise your fellow teachers, newly qualified teachers, to try these things out to increase your repertoire of techniques. So look, humming and da-dying. Okay, so if we have a phrase, let's say, I don't know, that's amazing. Or Da, 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 da. Joe did this in his drill. Did you notice? Now what I like about this is it takes the pressure off the student getting all of the sounds right, the phonemes, the vowels, etc. They can just concentrate on, as someone said earlier on, the musicality, not the masculinity, no, the musicality of the phrase. Hands. Okay, so opening, closing fist. That's amazing. Can you see me on the video? That's amazing. Trying to get a physical link to the stress, to the greater energy, the greater volume. It's a kind of memory link, memory technique. Make it physical, make it emotional. Clapping, tapping. That's amazing. Use your board pen, tap it out. Get them to listen and repeat. Thumping, that's amazing. All kinds of things you can do. Fingers for eliciting word, sentence stress, number of syllables. So what's a typical one? Comfortable, comfortable, comfortable. Okay, comfortable, comfortable. No, comfortable, comfortable. Break it down. Simple things. Straight forearm. What do I mean? I mean this. So where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. What's the intonation for the first part of that phrase? Where there's a will, is it up? Is it down? Is it up or is it down? Elicit from the students. Exactly, up. Where there's a will, there's a way. Get them to do it as well. Side profile diagram. The articulators. I do think that you need to know the articulators. Why? Because if you know what they are, then you know that you'll be able to explain to students how we make the sounds. So you know the teeth, the lips, the tongue is crucial for vowel sounds. The hard palate, the soft palate, hard palate, soft palate, the nasal cavity, all really important. I think it's useful on occasion to be able to draw this for certain sounds, especially to show the position of the tongue or for consonant sounds. It's another thing you can do, another little technique. Okay. So, on the techniques, I want to just ask you to push your own repertoire in this way. Let me show you what I mean. Here's an example. Excuse the ticks. They've gone a bit funny in the formatting, but those are ticks, believe me. On the left-hand side, we have some techniques. Not all of them, some techniques. Fingers, clapping, da-da-da-da. For example, fingers, lip position. So, E, ear, E, ear. Notice the difference. Adrian Underhill, these are typical things that he is encouraging us to do with our students, and they're great. What about sitting, standing, sitting? Okay, so it's something completely different. So that's amazing. That's amazing. Get them to feel the stress, the energy on those sounds. All kinds of other things you can do. Conducting. That's amazing. Etc., etc. So you've got the techniques there. Along the top, you've got some pronunciation features. Lip position, jaw, vowel, diphthong, word stress, sentence stress, etc. On that page alone, there are 36 actions you could take. 36. And that's not everything. That's an example. So you can push yourself a bit more, or your fellow teachers could push themselves a bit more, perhaps. One, on the left-hand side, to increase your repertoire of techniques. Apply to a greater range of relevant pronunciation features. How can we expand our repertoire on a regular basis, perhaps in every lesson? Okay. My final area, guys, is boardwork. Now, I'm a great fan of quality boardwork, and I hope you agree that this is. Let's have a look. Here's a sample lesson, language taken from a real lesson taught at International House Bristol recently with adults. And here you have lots of language on the board. Have a look. What do you think? Give me your opinions. Do you like it? You've got aims at the top. You've got a column on the right-hand side divided off for grammar and vocabulary. This is an IWB board. You've got a box with phrase of the day, which happened to be day in, day out. You've got a correction corner on the left. Okay. I like it. Lots of phrase level language, useful for upper intermediate, but something missing. I think we can be making it more useful for our students. Here's an example. Same board, bit more annotation. Have a look. Try and say a few of those things. Do they work for you? Okay. But actually, guys, I don't think that's enough either. I think it should be more like this. So now we have intonation, we have phrase stress, we have word stress, we have individual sounds, we have elision, we have all kinds of other things. And I'm not annotating everything possible, I'm annotating what I think is important for my learners. And remember, your students will be noting these things down in their books as they do, taking pictures with their phones. I think that's a much more useful and, I would argue, memorable visual display than without the annotation. We can go, let's compare that again. Without and with. Without and with. And I think color coding is also important. Color code your work. Make the students, tell the students what the codes mean. Okay, so a simple thing. It's a simple thing. But I think we can all be pushing ourselves in that direction. Someone's written a nice comment there, motivating for students who know the phonemic chart. I mean, yeah, I think this is an interesting point. We have rolling enrollment here. So for our students, I would integrate it into my class, not just using it now and again as a tool. We have the charts on our walls. Sometimes we teach them, sometimes we just integrate it into what we're doing. And the students can pick it up as they go along. Because you're saying it at the same time, they can hear what the sounds are. But that's a discussion for another presentation, perhaps. Okay, guys, so I'm going to conclude in a couple of minutes. But finally, here are my 5 top tips to ensure successful pronunciation integration in your classes. Simple things, guys. First, I'm sure most of you are familiar, but I think you do need to learn or relearn the phonemic chart for yourself as a professional. How it's organized, exactly, and why. And how is the sound produced? What are the articulators used? How do you say t? How do you say ch? How do you say g? How do you say, the difference between o and or? The tongue is in a different position. It's longer. We need to be able to help our students in this way, to diagnose, like a doctor, their problems. Try to keep pronunciation fun and light in tone. Make it fun and memorable. A lot of students get stressed about the pronunciation. It's quite a personal thing. So I think that's important. Approach problem sounds from 2 directions. Receptive, goals and targets. For their listening, what do they need to be able to understand when they're listening? And productive. What level do they need to be able to produce at? And make it memorable, including emotion, paralinguistics, or varying your techniques, as we have seen already. And as I said at the beginning, work to uncover the pronunciation syllabus within every lesson, material, listening text, reading text, grammar exercise. And I started repeating myself here. I was getting excited, I'm sorry. But there's so much we can be doing related to what will be useful for your students. I can't tell you what they need exactly, only you can. But I think you need to have your own pronunciation policy and make sure that you're integrating pronunciation systematically. Okay, so just to finish, some pronunciation books that you may be aware of. I think the first one is one I'd really like to recommend to you guys, a series. English Pronunciation and Use from Cambridge. They are brilliant and comprehensive. 3 levels. I really, really like these. Here's an example page. This is an introduction to emphatic stress. Sorry about the copy, but you can see it's quite a nice presentation. There's a dialogue at the bottom of where you put the stress in a sentence. I'll read it to you. It says, he won't win. Who won't? He won't. He will win. He won't win. He will. It's all about context. It's all about real meaning, linking those ideas together. But it's a fantastic series. Either make sure you've got it or ask your DOS to order a copy today. Okay, you'll all know the classic pronunciation games. Yeah, I really like this book, and Mark Hancock is one of the authors of the previous book, in fact. This is about explicit activities, which I think is okay sometimes. You know, that's good. You need it now and again. But I want you to integrate phonology much more than just explicit standalone activities. And the classic, let's see, Adrian Underhill is on here. Adrian, apologies, this doesn't look like the most up-to-date book. But Sound Foundations is, for me, an unbelievably clear and comprehensive guide for anyone from any level. I think pre-cert, cert, post-cert, dip level, post-dip level. Guys, if you've read it already, read it again. If it was years ago. If you haven't read it, you must. It's just a brilliant summary of everything you need to know as a professional language teacher. And for those interested in ELF, English as a Lingua Franca, and the Lingua Franca core, a really important area for us to know about these days with English as a global language. Robin Walker, who'll be talking at the Directors of Studies Conference in London. I'll be very much looking forward to that. Teaching the pronunciation of English as a Lingua Franca. It's a brilliant book for bedtime reading. Get hold of a copy if you can. I thoroughly recommend it. Okay. By the way, just if you're interested, I use this online phonemic keyboard to put in the bits of phonemic script in this presentation. Dead easy to use. Phonemicchart.com. So if you want to know, that's where that is. You type, you copy, you paste. Text from my research. Jennifer Jenkins also has a book from 2007, which is also fantastic. Pretty high-level research, but if you're interested, you know, get hold of a copy as well. So, okay, show us the cover of the book again. Which book was that? Sorry. I'll just go through the books again. Someone's asking for. We've got this one here, English Pronunciation in Use, which is Mark Hancock, Cambridge. There are 2 other levels as well. I'll go back to the other books now. Then you have, that's an example page. Then you have Pronunciation Games, Mark Hancock, Cambridge. It's the classic. And okay, that's Mark Hancock, Pronunciation Games. And then Sound Foundations, Adrian Underhill, Macmillan, Learning and Teaching Pronunciation. And finally, for those interested, is the Teaching Pronunciation of English as a Lingua Franca. I don't really know of many other books. I'm sure Adrian can correct me on this. Many other books on that specific topic. A book as comprehensive as this is, at least. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So, guys, it is a big challenge. I mean, I'm sure lots of you already use pronunciation, and it's great. But I am trying to get people to reassess, to push yourselves further, to expand your repertoire, to improve your boardwork, to re-examine your current practice. But there's so many things you can do. You know lots of it. It's just a question of looking for the phonological opportunities in your classes, in your materials, in your learners' errors. And of course, you know what they say. Where there's a will, there's a way, guys. Okay, well, good luck from myself and good luck from IH Bristol in integrating phonology in the future. Thank you very much, guys.
Brilliant stuff there, Pete. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. No problem. You're very welcome.
I just muted your microphone just so we don't get echo as we come in and help you. Thank you all very much for coming to this workshop. Do you have any questions for Pete? We have a couple of minutes before we head into the next session with Eva. If anybody had any questions. There was one from ELA Wassel, Pete, about how can you level pronunciation. I'm not sure if
That's
they're trying
Ella, not ELA. Her name's Ella.
Ella Wassel. If you have any ideas about quick ways of leveling pronunciation, I presume they mean different. Would you teach different areas that you've been talking about at different levels?
Yeah, I can answer that question. Yeah. Hi. I think there was a question about. I think the question was about how you decide what to teach for different levels. It's a tricky one. I mean, my own feeling is that there's isn't much in pronunciation that you shouldn't be doing from the beginning. So when you teach a beginner's class, hello, my name's Pete, I come from Bristol. Well, in that you've got a contraction, you've got a weak form, you've got sentence stress, you've got intonation, and you don't want your students to be saying, hello, I come from, I am. You want them to be saying it in a very similar way to you. One, because that's what they're going to hear, especially with native speakers, and two, because they need to get it from the beginning. My name's Hussein, and I come from Saudi Arabia. So get it in there from the beginning. I think the LFC, the first lingua franca core category, is, I think, quite a useful guide. Prioritizing individual phonemes and sounds and consonants, and that nuclear stress placement, where's the key stress syllable in an utterance, is really really important. So it will depend on your learner's first language, their language background. It will depend on what they're doing and what you're teaching. So integrate it into what you're doing as well. I don't know if that's much of an answer, but
I think that's a fab answer, Pete. That's exactly what we were hoping, expecting, and what you've been talking about the whole way through, the integrating it. There was another question from Margaret Hurley about if you have any specific tips for integrating paralanguage.
One second. I'll just turn you up a bit, Neil. Okay, do you want to say that again, Neil?
Margaret Hurley asks, do you have any specific tips for integrating paralanguage?
Neil, can you? Okay. Paralanguage, I should know that term, I'm sure. I'm gone blank, I'm afraid. Whether do you mean paraphrasing language? I'm not sure. Is that Margaret Hurley there? Okay.
I thought
feel free to
paralinguistic.
Maybe she means paralinguistic.
She's talking about fillers.
Back channeling and fillers. Yeah, well, I think those are nice, and you can getting students to have some kind of communicative task and responding to each other using those kinds of fillers, but to think about the delivery of those, the pronunciation, the volume, the speed, etc. So, the intonation of it, showing surprise, showing interest, showing boredom. So there's all kinds of things you could be doing with that. And again, you can be from the beginning, from any level.
I'm gonna have to. There are more questions on the board, but hopefully Pete can answer them directly into the board as we're nearly at the end of the hour. Pete, I've muted your mic, but I'm sure everybody would say thank you very much. There's lots of thank yous already on the board for it.